These storms haven't been producing a lot of thunder and lightning. You may not have heard of the hail or the typical sounds that you typically think of when it comes to severe weather, but this is a different setup, and that's why the watch was issued by the local weather service, because of the rotation in the environment these storms are just tapping into. They are rotating, and they don't have to be powerful supercells to produce damaging tornadoes, and that's exactly what we're seeing here with that rotation. Now, what was that? Okay, so we want to. Okay, so we want to hit a couple of other warnings because now we've got more tornadoes on the ground. So there's the one. Jackie, what were you saying?
Tornado on the ground.
Okay.
It's heading towards South Elgin.
Okay, so that's this one, and JD said there's 2 tornadoes on the ground here. Okay, so hold on. Let's zoom out if we can, JD, so we can kind of reset. And we'll hit back on these 2 tornadoes on the ground. So let's take a broad view because this is, again, all of the Chicago metro area, but there are different suburbs in play, okay? So let's go a little bit wider if we can. Obviously, we've been talking about the Chicago tornado moving towards the city. That's this cell right there, okay? Now, on the northwest side of the metro area in Kane County, that is where we've got now 2 tornadoes confirmed on the ground right now. That's where you have that observed tag. And notice those little areas where the rain or on the radar, it kind of went in a little bit. You have those little circles in the green. Those are where the tornadoes are. You see one right there and then one right there. So these are likely rain wrapped, possibly. And they are on the ground just south of Elgin, just to the west and south of Elgin. So if you live in Elgin, you need to take shelter immediately here. That's towards Youngsdale. Now, this storm is a little bit stronger. This is the one that we've been watching come through southern Wisconsin, move through Rockford, and we said this was the back edge, the main line. That's the cell that we're talking about. And notice it's starting to drape some more isolated storms that are rotating and could produce more tornadoes. So things are happening very quickly here in the Chicago metro area. So Elgin, you need to take shelter immediately. 2 tornadoes on the ground. There's Highway 20, and there's I-90 towards Schaumburg. So if you live in these communities, we're giving you an idea of the timing. Again, a tornado there, a tornado there. Sometimes when you have 2 tornadoes that close together, one kind of takes over with the cell, and that can also veer. That can cause some shifting with the track. So don't take this by ground truth. Jackie's going to come over, kind of join in.
Just got a little more information about that more northern one over towards Algonquin.
Oh, so that's the warning north of there. Okay.
Yeah, so there has been some damage reported there, some trees down and some damage to homes. We don't know how severe that damage might be at this time, but obviously a very dangerous situation on all of these warnings that are unfolding, all of which have either radar proof or ground truth of actual tornadoes that have touched down and caused damage. So we've got the one towards Midway, we've got the one towards South Elgin, now we've got the one up towards Algonquin. The original warning just outside of Chicago has now been allowed to expire, but the extension of it that goes, from about Midway there and heading into the city of Chicago, that one remains in effect. So we're still seeing some rotation on that. And notice we've got like 3 different cells in there too that we're watching.
Yeah.
You look at this radar and you go, that's
because we may get an area. Yeah, I know.
It looks very deceiving. So trust the warnings here. We've had public reports of an actual tornado. We had a debris signature on the other cell. So get to your safe place.
Yeah.
A lot of people are probably in their office buildings right now still in Chicago.
Waiting on traffic to subside.
Yes, don't get out
on the roads. That's for sure. That's the last place you want to be. And I know if you're already on the roads, you got to do what you got to do. There's a limit. If you can get inside a building, that's always helpful. You're likely stuck in traffic. This is new video of that storm that's warned on for Chicago. This was a little earlier near Oswego, Illinois, when it was first warned on. So you can hear the sirens going off. And at this point, this was where the funnel cloud was spotted. You see how it kind of makes a V in the center of your screen? That was the beginning of that rotation really taking shape. It amazes me, Chris, Jackie, how we haven't had a lot of thunder and lightning at all with these storms, and boom, we get 4 or 5 warnings within 10 minutes, how quickly things have escalated.
And Oswego, if you're not familiar with the area, it's south of Aurora. So these are in the western suburbs of Chicago, and it's still a little bit to the, it was a little bit to the west. Oswego's a little bit to the west of Naperville. But this is the one that we've been watching, the southernmost storm that's had rotation on it for quite some time now. And that's the one where the warning kind of changed. And it's the closest one to downtown Chicago right now.
Yeah.
This is the storm when it was in Oswego, which is south of Aurora.
Yeah, look at that rotation there too. That, I mean, you can clearly see that whole like lowering of that cloud rotating around. I mean, that's clearly rotating, and this is what these storms have the kind of environment to be able to do as they push through.
Yeah, you don't see anything on the ground there. That's good for the moment. This is the view from the lakefront. Is this from Willis Tower, by the way?
I think
this
so.
might be a camera on Willis
Yep.
Tower. So we're overlooking the park there and overlooking the lakefront, so we can see downtown Chicago. But you know, when the lake's in front of you, you know that the storm's behind you.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So we're not looking at the storms that are coming. We're looking across the lake, but still you can see the dark skies and the clouds. Warren, I know you're looking at all this, and visible satellite is really showing some of the explosive nature of a few of these storms too.
Look at those showers offshore there.
Yeah.
Again, it's getting a little windy here and stormy here in Chicago. Here's
Oh,
your
wow.
Wrigley Field. Look on top of the screen. You can see the flags whipping around.
Yeah.
Even the traffic light here. And if you've ever been up close to a traffic light, they're big
It was
and heavy.
bouncing. It was bouncing
Yeah,
with the
it
wind.
still is. It's kind of just
some of
bouncing
those
around.
gusts really picking up there in downtown Chicago. Again, that's not the tornado yet that's coming through, but it looks like we've got a couple areas, Chris, that are obviously the tornado on the ground, but then even ahead of that, there's an area trying to rotate.
All right, so we'll get back to some of the specifics with each one of the different tornado warnings that are ongoing right now in Chicago, but want to kind of give you a larger view, give you an idea of what's going on and why conditions are so favorable right now for tornadoes in Chicago. And here's the visible satellite. We are seeing some of the bigger clouds right now, some of those happening offshore in Lake Michigan. We're looking at some of that rain shafts here. Also, you can see how it's coming down like this. Here are the tornado warnings, some being extended from other storms. And there is now some lightning. There was rotation earlier without the lightning, so these storms are getting bigger. They're getting taller. We can look at some of the parameters, some of the different ingredients that can contribute to the development of tornadoes. So right now, this is the radar and the satellite. So this is what we're seeing, detecting right now. But what else is going on here? There is still plenty of energy, not a ton, but enough for these storms to tap into to get that air rising. Also notice that as we look at some of the temperatures, it's warm enough. You're in the 70s, it's warmer to the south. Notice the movement of the storms. And then if you stare at this, can you see these small little white lines? At times, they're going in opposite directions as the storm. So the storms are being moved by the winds a little bit higher up in the atmosphere, and at the surface, the moisture coming in, the winds are almost kind of going like that. So there's the wind shear. This is an environment where these storms are likely to spin, and that's exactly what's happening right now. Plenty of moisture in place for these storms. The supercell parameter as well, in that likely to even very likely. So some of these storms took a while for them to go really vertical, but they are. So another one of the parameters. Notice it's also somewhat limited. So once the back edge comes through, you start to lose some of that. A little bit of stabilization going on here, but still favorable for the development of some big storms. Another look at the sort of on the 850 millibars. So you're looking at a few thousand feet into the air, not quite at the surface. So this is where you're seeing some of these strong winds, and that's what these colors are here, the blue and the pink, really racing along and pushing the storms here. They haven't been super tall, so we've been seeing the storms being pushed here by some of the lower level winds. It's about 5,000 feet above ground. At the surface, the winds are going in the other direction. So again, really a tendency for these storms to spin. Also notice right here, we were watching the storm that was south of Aurora. We were looking at video a few moments ago. It was going like this, and then the warning got changed to more of a northeast movement instead of a due east movement. And you can see how, and when that happened, the winds just kind of changed a little bit with the area of low pressure that's driving this whole thing, helping to bring the winds more from the southwest. That's why you got this storm coming in, kind of taking a left turn, heading into downtown Chicago. A lot of things going on right now to help create an environment where these storms are spinning. And again, I do have 3 areas we're watching right now with the tornado warnings and the lightning. So guys, that's what we're seeing, kind of the big picture. And we do have these warnings, a lot of these in effect here until 6:45 or 7 o'clock this evening Central Time. Jackie.
All right, I want to take you back into Chicago with a live look overlooking downtown. There you can see the dark skies and the dark clouds here as well. I just, want to note that as we take a look at this, there are several different storms that are very near Chicago, some of which are rotating and some of which are not. The area that we're seeing over Chicago at the moment is kind of the leading edge. This is the leading edge of the storm that's beginning to move in. So you're going to notice things are getting darker as we look at the lake view. We can see some of the rain, it looks like, that's beginning to come down. So we are starting to see conditions begin to change. So you're going to get the rain. You might get a little bit of hail out of this, and then the tornado part of the storm would come after. So the rotating part of the storm is actually still back. Well, it's east of Cicero now. I would call it southeast of Cicero, but still working its way there. So the rain's coming down at Wrigley Field right now. We've got ground stops that are in effect at Midway. That's what you're looking at live here at the moment. In fact, I've been looking at the terminal radar at Midway and O'Hare. They've actually been doing a better job close up, kind of giving us a pinpoint view of where the actual area of rotation is. But now for some reason, the scan's old. So, okay, so O'Hare is down. There you go. That would explain why the scan would be old. So unfortunately, we got to go back to the other one that's a little bit further away, but we are still seeing signs of that rotation. It's getting close to being between, I would say, almost halfway between Cicero and Chicago at the moment. So air travel coming to a halt right now. Your road travel should be coming to a halt immediately. If you know anybody out on the roads, try and get a hold of them and let them know that this very dangerous weather is moving in. This is a considerable threat. We've seen videos of a funnel, and at times we've had a couple of reports of the tornadoes being on the ground. So this is in Chicago, but also areas up towards the north. Algonquin, we had a report of a tornado. We've got one still very near Elgin. It looks like it's southeast of Elgin, by the way, right now, for folks who are there. And Schaumburg, you don't have a lot of time. You need to be getting to your tornado safe place. So looking at all these different shots, Chris and Chris, we can see that very favorable conditions of seeing that shear and seeing the rotation with these storms. So things that are popping are turning, right? If we can get these individual storms developing strong enough, we're seeing them all rotate now.
I want to pull up the radar, and Chris, you chime in too, because I'm looking at this, and there's so many other cells that aren't even in warnings right now that are likely either certainly rotating. I mean, look at this cell over the lake right now, just off the lake shore. Obviously, it's out over the lake moving away from Chicago, but boy, look at the rotation on some of this, and then look at these cells south of the warned area, because the encouraging news, at least for Chicago proper, there has been signs of weakening with some of the rotation as it's approaching the Chicago area, or at least the city of Chicago. So that's at least somewhat encouraging news, but these things are happening so quickly they could easily spin back up as they come into downtown. We saw it in Oswego, and then boom, it touched down just east of there. Just west of Cicero and not far from Midway International. But I mean, we got 1, 2, 3, 4 area storms, and then 5, 6. I mean, every single one of these cells, they're rotating, and they could go tornado warn at any minute. And then you've got these tornadoes back here with the main line that's going to come through. And then once that passes, the threat's pretty much done. But a good call by the National Weather Service issuing a watch. Local area, very small area, but such a heavily populated area. And one of those situations where when the tornado warning's issued, I mean, it's from that to the ground simultaneously.
Right. If you tuned in, early this morning and then tuned out, you knew that there was a risk, but that risk went up by about lunchtime today. We started issuing torcons of a 5 as we recognized that conditions were more favorable for these rotating storms. And here we are, worst time of the day too, as we're in the PM rush, and a lot of people are trying to get home, and folks are out and about doing their activities. So make sure everybody knows what's going on. They know of the threat, and don't be fooled with this one tornado warning that rolls on through. We may get additional warnings yet here in the next hour or two. Right now, the trajectory of those storms, though, do look like they may be more on the north side of Chicago.
Oh, wow. JD said rotation is tightening now over the loop in downtown Chicago. So the area of rotation, the tornado may not be on the ground any longer, but it's trying to tighten back up and trying to re-rotate as it approaches the lakeshore. So you need to be in your safe place. Downtown Chicago right now, that is where the heart of this rotation is, and a possibility of either a tornado on the ground or about to be on the ground as it comes through the heart of the downtown area of Chicago. Chris, you were going to say something earlier and I cut you off. I didn't know if there's a lot going on. We're trying to manage a lot.
Right, and we've been watching the environment. It's like you've been talking about, it's just ready to spin here. Been looking at a lot of different cameras. This is Midway here on the left in Chicago. So this is now a little bit away from the storm that we're looking at on the right, but it is looking up to the north in the direction of the other tornado-warned storms right now. So a few different cameras that we're keeping an eye on here in Chicago. On the right is one of those. And then here, this camera from the sky deck here at the Willis Tower, the former Sears Tower here in downtown Chicago, looking off as the storms depart here. And this, you were talking about that one that was rotating. Look off to the left there. Look how low, right below gusts at 20. Look how low those clouds are. I wonder if we could just, if it was possible to just look over just a little bit more to the left. I wonder what we would see, because it certainly does look like, at the very least, there's heavy rain. There could be possible rotation right there.
I think so. I mean, this is the loop. I mean, if there's rotation happening, it's happening. I mean, you're going to get kind of a bird's eye view from this tower camera right now, and things are changing so quickly. You can almost watch it.
That almost looks like a multi-vortex.
Yeah.
Do you see that there, Jay?
I see rotation on the right is what I
see. Yeah.
You know what? Actually, that's a little bit above. So it's not multi-vortex, but it has a lot of different, almost like columns in the clouds, right? So now that I look at it, there's a little bit of a shadow, but really that's low hanging, because you see the cloud base there as you look straight out, and then you go to the left, and then all of a sudden just there's that drop off.
Oh.
You see that?
Yeah, but I was also looking at the radar. We just put it up. Dalton, can we, Dalton, JD, can we zoom in hyper local there? You see how that notch is there?
I think that's that on the left,
right
Chris.
near, yep, that's that low area right there.
That's the area of rotation right in there. Yeah.
Yeah, look at that. I mean, that's right near Navy Pier.
That little yellow on the top of the screen off to the right there. Yeah, right over Navy Pier.
Yeah, right there. That's the area that's not to say there's a tornado on the ground, but it's in the developing stages of tightening back up again and strengthening.
And it looks like as it's going out over water is what it appears to be on the left. Look at that.
Wow, look at. Do you guys see? Do you see this and this? I don't know if that's just like scud from a cloud.
That's what I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, I see it more pronounced now. It's hard. I think that's high up. It just kind of looks like it's meeting the water.
At first, I thought it was. Yeah, I thought it was on the water at first, but no. From this vantage point, I think it is a little bit higher up. There's a little bit of a shadow there, but it's just an obvious lowering of the clouds there on the left.
And then look. And they just dropped the warning because it looks like now it's pulling out over the lake.
All right, good, because I want to mention, by the way, and go back up to that other tornado warning we were talking about near Elgin. That one I mentioned that we were seeing rotation south and east of South Elgin, and storm spotters did confirm some rotation and a tornado and some damage to a couple of homes, as well as some tree damage. We don't know how serious that is, but now that area of rotation is right over what we call Streamwood, and it's very near Schaumburg. If you live in Schaumburg, this is a very populated suburb of Chicago. You need to be getting to your safe place right now, Schaumburg. There's a likely tornado just off to your west, right there where you see the red and the green that are coming together, and that's moving more in an easterly direction. You're more likely to see impacts on the south side of Schaumburg, but oftentimes we can get, these little deviancies basically from the direction of the tornado and where it's moving. So all of Schaumburg needs to be getting to their tornado safe place right now. This is just south of Interstate 90. This is going to be crossing 290 with time. So yeah, let's go ahead and do a timer out on that one, JD, if we can, and give folks a better idea of when it might be arriving. So Schaumburg, I would not wait. I would be getting to my tornado safe place right now. Less than 5 minutes for you. Elk Grove, it would be arriving around 7:02. Des Plaines around 7:07. If it holds together beyond that, we don't have, warnings out there just yet, but that's the area that the rotation would be heading towards. Niles at 7:14. So these are not super fast moving storms. So they're going to take their time moving where they're moving, but unfortunately that also means that they've got a little more time over the areas that they're causing destruction on, if indeed that is happening. So we don't know if there's a tornado on the ground right now, but we do know that one likely touched down very near South Elgin and did cause a little bit of damage, and now it's just to the west of Schaumburg and about halfway between Streamwood and Schaumburg. If you live in Hoffman Estates, if you live in Roselle, get to your tornado safe place. All right, I'm hearing now that it is confirmed that we do still have the report of a tornado on the ground. JD, have we looked at correlation coefficient to see if we've got any kind of a debris signature?
Look at that.
So
right
let's loop
Schaumburg.
that if we can see, because that doesn't quite match up with where we're seeing the rotation at the moment. So there you can see, yeah, that is likely some debris getting lofted near Schaumburg. It's hard to say because a lot of times some of the upper level winds are a little bit stronger. There we go. Now we've got a new scan. So now we can see that the rotation is likely right on top of you there in Schaumburg. And that's likely the a debris signature that we're seeing very near Interstate 90. So that is a dangerous situation with a confirmed tornado by Doppler radar near Schaumburg, Illinois. Des Plaines, this is heading in your direction, and this is a very dangerous tornado. This is one of several warnings that we still have in effect in northern Illinois. The good news is the one for Chicago has been allowed to expire, but the one farther to the north that did cause some damage earlier near Lake Zurich, we still are seeing some signs of rotation there near Barrington, heading towards Long Grove and to the Vernon Hills area. So guys, we've got maybe 30 to 60 minutes, and these are going to be over the lake, and then we're going to be done.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we're dealing with a very dangerous time here right now over some very populated suburbs.
Yeah, that back storm that's producing a very destructive large tornado is the one that formed near Elgin. That's the or Elgin. That's the that's the back edge, but that storm has been the most potent of all of these. It's gathered a lot of strength. It actually has thunder and lightning with it too. So you've got some taller cloud development with this, and these storms are able to tap into even stronger wind energy aloft. But notice all these hooks back over near just south of Chicago over the lake, likely dealing with water spouts, and this threat may even continue into Michigan. But the cooler lake waters may weaken some of this before it makes it over towards I-94 and parts of the western part of the state.
Yeah, let's hope so. Just looking at the radar signature there near Schaumburg, this tornado could be wrapped in rain. So, don't look for that visual confirmation before you get to your safe place here. Just trust the warnings and get to the lowest level of your home. Get away from doors and windows. If you're at the office building and you're on a high floor, work your way to the interior and then work your way down as quickly as you possibly can. You don't want to panic. You don't want to cause chaos wherever you are at work, and just, in a calm manner, just do what you can to get to the lowest interior room that you possibly can.
Again, now on the left-hand side of the screen is from the Willis Tower here. Up at the sky deck looking off to the east, watching the storms move out over Lake Michigan right now. But it is on land in the other direction where there are the dangerous storms right now, and a little bit farther to the north as well. See the radar sweeping with the two areas of tornado-warned storms right now. But you can even see this storm that we're looking off in the distance, just kind of just off center to the left. You can kind of see the low-hanging nature of the clouds there, and even off a little little bit to the right as well. So bottom line, there is a lot going on in the atmosphere right now as that rotating storm is departing on the left. There are a couple more that are moving in. Look at the one just south of Chicago as well. That one and the one that just went offshore both have little hooks on them.
Yeah.
You know, so signs that this atmosphere absolutely is able to rotate and produce these rotating thunderstorms that are the more likely ones to produce tornadoes. And as we're looking right now, again, seeing the two rain shafts moving offshore, while again, Chris, two areas of tornado-warned storms just north of downtown. Going to scoot really close to downtown. Actually, the lower one there in Des Plaines also going to get very close.
Yeah, and that back edge over towards Elgin and Schaumburg, that's got to come back through Chicago and is kind of building back towards the south. So even though the tornado warning for downtown Chicago is done, any rotation now is offshore, moving out over the lake. We've got more dangerous storms with tornadoes moving into Chicago within the next hour. So your threat's not over with, and it's very likely we may see another couple of tornado warnings before all is said and done. So if we can, let's start with this tornado warning because this is the most dangerous. Obviously, the area of concern is right there near Schaumburg, that little hook that you see. That is where the tornado is, just south of I-90, kind of drifting mainly east, but just south of east, and that brings it into some very heavily populated areas around Elk Grove within the next 5 to 10 minutes. Des Plaines by 10-15 minutes from now, so about 7:04, 7:06, expecting an arrival. They just extended the warning there now for that Schaumburg tornado.
Yeah, there's a storm spotter right on 390 there in Schaumburg that's reporting they can see a funnel.
Okay.
It's about halfway down to the ground. So doesn't appear that we have a tornado on the ground at the moment, but we have a rotating storm. We've got a funnel. This could touch down at any time and begin causing damage. So that's right along 390 in Rodenburg near Schaumburg.
And so that brings up a good point that these are pretty short-lived tornadoes. They're touching down, and there's not enough energy, it seems like, these storms to keep it on the ground, but then it lifts back up and then comes back down again. And we're going to see more of that potential, which means it's hard to get long lead times because new areas of rotation form, and you just got to be on top of it and just take this threat seriously. I would say while this threat is there for the next hour, once this is offshore, we're done. But in Chicago and really the entire metro area, you need to just be in your safe place. So many of these storms are going and may not even all have a warning. There's so many things happening at once, so many areas of rotation that may be producing brief spin-ups that are still causing tornadoes. And you mentioned the damage there just west of Schaumburg, large trees down, a couple homes damaged, and that's the extent we've had so far. That's the only reports that we know of.
All right, it looks like we're getting a new tornado warning that's getting issued here for Chicago. Hasn't populated yet onto our graphic there just yet, but that should be coming out shortly for parts of Cook County. Did you say DuPage too, JD? And
yeah,
parts
DuPage
of DuPage. All right, Glendale Heights reporting a confirmed tornado at this time. So that's the warning that's getting issued right now. If you live in Glendale Heights, we're seeing multiple areas of rotation with that storm. You need to be getting to your tornado safe place right now, Glendale Heights.
So let's while we can, there's so much going on. If you're just joining us, we want to kind of reset the stage and walk you through what we've had. So let's zoom out the radar a bit and show you where we're at. We're in Illinois. Really, it's the Chicago metro area. That's it, dealing with the tornadoes. We did have a tornado warning in Pennsylvania. Radar indicated didn't look like anything had happened, but still keep in mind we do have some strong storms in the northeast that are producing some severe weather. So keep an eye on that. But the biggest tornado threat is right here in Metro Chicago, and really, as this whole batch of storms pushed in, boom, tornado warning were issued left and right over the last hour and 15 minutes or so. So notice here we've got this warning's the about to expire warning. So here's the new warning issued out for Cook and DuPage counties. This is the one that you said was confirmed in Glendale Heights. So that's not far from Bloomington, also approaching Des Plaines. Notice that little hook right there. A couple of these storms are having some hooks too, and you can see that rotation. You see, you have these little notches in the radar near Wooddale, and also back over here to the west of Elmhurst, and then also to the north of there, not far from Bloomington. Is it Bloomington?
Bloomingdale.
Bloomingdale. Okay, so Bloomingdale. Those areas you need to get into shelter immediately because those are showing one being a confirmed tornado and then several other areas of possible tornadoes.
Yeah, this Glendale Heights one looking very ominous on Doppler radar. We've got the confirmation of people reporting that we do have a tornado on the ground. It does look like it's on the northeast side of Glendale Heights right now. This is going to be tracking just north of Lombard. It's going to be heading towards Addison. If you live in Villa Park, if you live in Elmhurst, Bensonville, up towards Wooddale, all of those areas are going to be very near the vicinity of the area where we're seeing the worst of the rotation that's tracking off towards the east right now.
So if we could put the correlation coefficient, I want to see if we're seeing any debris signatures. Let's play it and see, because sometimes the radars keep switching, and we notice the O'Hare radar's out. So sometimes we might have a better visual of the, okay, yeah, look at that, moving towards 355. That was the area just near Addison. That's likely where the tornado is. So we can track it, JD, from, okay, so there's that notch right there, just south of Bloomingdale, moving off kind of parallel to Route 64, and then near U.S. Highway 20, so approaching 290 near Elmhurst. So if you live in that area, Elmhurst, Addison, and just south of there, those are the spots that need to take shape. So let's time this out. Addison, momentarily, within the next 5 minutes, you've got the a tornado headed to your.
I'm seeing the debris signature just
very
west of
strong.
Addison.
So just west of Addison, you need to be in your safe place immediately. Elmhurst, you'll be next within the next 10 minutes. So by 7:05 p.m., a tornado overhead for you, and then crossing 290 from there, and then getting over towards Layden by 7:13 p.m., and then Oak Park by 7:20 p.m. here on the north side of Chicago.
All right, Warren, you got some new information?
We do have a new picture into the Weather Channel right now. You guys have been talking about some of the funnel clouds that have been reported in tornadoes. And how about this right here? It kind of looks like almost like a reverse or an upside down pyramid here. That point goes down. So here in some of the western suburbs of Chicago, as these storms are approaching either downtown or just north of downtown, this certainly a sign of what we've been hearing in some of the reports that have been coming into the Weather Channel and here on Storm Center that we've been watching, kind of confirming that these storms have been rotating with funnels, and again, reports of damage as well with some of these storms. So this is a picture that just came into the Weather Channel right now. Guys, certainly does look like a pretty obvious funnel, at least a lowering, and that kind of cone look, that upside down pyramid look, gives you the sense that there's some rotation within this.
Yeah, it's hard to tell if there might be a little bit of condensation even beneath that I'm seeing.
I'm seeing that little blurry. That might just be some of the wind, debris, like dust, kind of dirt picking up with that rotation, kind of being sucked up in there.
Hard to say, but certainly something that makes you take shelter right away.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this, some visual look, representation of what the atmosphere is doing, but also what we've been seeing on radar with that tight rotation and the ongoing nature of the pattern of the severe thunderstorm warnings on reflectivity, really showing us signs that these storms are rotating with the potential of doing more of this.
All right, I want to get back to the radar right now. So let's, again, reset. Let's zoom out because there's a lot of tornado warnings. Chicago proper, look at that little cell approaching the lakeshore right there. That's likely at least producing somewhat of a funnel. But again, all of these out of the lake are dangerous, and we've got to track this threat even into northern Indiana. Once Chicago's done, that threat for tornadoes will continue east, but it does weaken somewhat. So we've got the main tornado warning that we're tracking right now. This is the tornado on the ground in Cook and DuPage counties near Bloomingdale, Elk Grove, and now east of Schaumburg. That was the one that we've been dealing with. It's towards Addison.
Yeah, there's actually looks like two different areas of rotation are now developing, and I'm getting more concerned about the one up towards Elk Grove Village and towards the Wooddale area, just to the east of Itasca, and it looks like we have another one also southwest of Addison. It looks like that rotation has broadened out a little bit, despite reports of a storm spotter just a few moments ago of a tornado on the ground over towards Glendale Heights. So it does look like maybe that is cycling a little bit. Let's hope that that's the best case scenario. scenario, but Elk Grove Village and Wooddale, Itasca, Bensonville, you need to be getting to your tornado safe place right now as that heads just south of Des Plaines and over towards Rosemont. Also, producer JD tells me that they're working on issuing a new tornado warning that's going to extend this farther east through Cook County that will take us all the way up towards the lake shore.
Okay, so that's going to bring Chicago back in play. So this is but they dropped all the other warnings north of the metro area.
Let's time this out because I think we should time that whole area, especially since we've seen some changes as to where the rotation has been, just so folks have a better idea. And I would say, JD, if possible, can we even expand that out a little bit and try and get Chicago proper and get the city in there too, so that people have a better idea of when it could be affecting downtown.
So that brings O'Hare in play, and I know O'Hare is under a shelter in place right now, so everyone at the airport is kind of just all huddled together in some of these safe areas at the airport. Oftentimes it's the bathroom, but there's more people than can fit in the bathroom. So you've got a lot of people taking shape. Obviously, no one is flying into or out of Chicago right now while there's the incoming threat for tornadoes. And again, these two areas circled on the map, those are the rotations. One with the tornado that was on the ground could likely still be on the ground, maybe cycling through, but it also could re-intensify. So we don't want to focus on the exact tracks. We're just timing this entire path of this entire squall, essentially, this whole storm as it pushes over into Chicago. So Des Plaines looking at an arrival time momentarily within the next few minutes. Norwood Park and areas near Schillings Park and Proviso, those areas within the next 10 minutes, and then getting towards the northwest side of Chicago and downtown Chicago within the next 20 to 30 minutes. So that gives you an idea of the timing based on your location to some of these spots on the map of when the areas of rotation and tornadoes will push through. Once that whole line clears you, the threat for tornadoes really is pretty much done for Chicago. But we got to get through this next batch, and it's very likely, as said, we're just waiting for the newest warning that will. Okay, so they said they just issued it for Cook County. It's just taking a little bit of longer time to populate on the graphic. But the newest tornado warning has come out, and it does include much of Cook County here, including parts of Chicago. So it includes downtown Chicago. So this scene, yet again, is going to look very different as these storms come barreling through. And these will likely be rain wrapped. There's a lot of rain out ahead of it. And, these tornadoes are changing every 10, 15 minutes. They're weakening and the new areas are strengthening. So it's not just like one long track tornado. It's multiple spin-ups that are producing twisters briefly.
And Chris, we'll show that tornado warning in a moment. But do you see here that little on the lower right-hand side of the screen on the right with the radar?
Oh yeah, this right here.
That little kidney bean one just offshore.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That's the rain shaft, I think, associated right offshore to the right. If you look at the camera, it's right kind of in the top right corner. That little rain shaft. So you can see that big rain shaft offshore. And the little one that's just, there it goes. It's gotten even smaller now. But look how heavy that rain looks.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you see how heavy that rain looks just off to the right, under that big, bright white cloud. There's some very heavy rain. Now, that's nothing compared to what's coming with that tornado warning storm. That's a little bit of yellow on the radar, right?
Yeah.
That's a little yellow on the radar.
Well, you're talking about that rain shaft right there, man. That looks heavy. It's just, it's creating that's that storm right there.
Right,
and,
but then imagine, that's just a little bit of yellow and orange. Imagine what it's like to be in that red right now associated with that tornado warning.
Yeah, and look at that rain coming in towards Schiller Park, Proviso, and again, there's several areas of rotation up towards Des Plaines, and then near 290, and also now building back towards Downers Grove, where that initial tornado warning we had about an hour ago.
It looks like tornadoes developing potentially over O'Hare at the moment.
Really?
We've got storm spotters that are now seeing that rotation over O'Hare. I know we've got a camera at Midway. Do we have an O'Hare camera too, guys, or not?
I don't think we
all right,
do.
We don't have one over O'Hare. So just a big heads up over O'Hare. If you happen to be at the airport, they do a good job of announcing things at the airport and show you where all those shelters are so that you can get into your tornado safe place now.
So there's the newest tornado warning. It has now populated. It's been issued for a few minutes now, but you're probably hearing the sirens going off. I know a lot of people are reporting that in downtown Chicago, all around the metro area. Shelter in place at O'Hare. Obviously, just the ground stops at both the big airports here in Chicago, and just a rough evening here with so many of these storms going tornado warned, and so impacting several different neighborhoods from the north side all the way down to the south side. And this threat is not over yet, and these storms could even tighten up more so as they approach the lakeshore and the heart of Chicago. So JD, if you could really quickly again, let's take the radar full and let's time this line out again to keep up to date with the latest. This is observed, obviously, so tornado on the ground. That was the one now likely approaching I-90 and I-290 there to the west of downtown Chicago. So we'll time out this entire storm, but note that there are different areas of rotation and tornadoes embedded in this storm. So the timing may fluctuate, but it gives you an estimation on when the threat will be highest. So right now, this is coming through the 290 corridor right over O'Hare. Jackie was saying there's a tornado likely taking shape over O'Hare or starting to tighten up near there at the airport.
That was a media report.
Okay, so that was a media report there coming out over the airport, and then moving into Chicago within the next 20 minutes. So downtown Chicago, you got about 20 minutes before some of the worst of these storms push on through. If you live west of downtown, it's going to be earlier than that. And north, Evanston, we got to watch you because some of those storms near Des Plaines, they are really showing some concerning signs on the radar.
Rosemont, Park Ridge, Niles, you all need to be in your tornado safe place right now. That rotation just to the south and east of Des Plaines looks very strong. We can see the hook signature on the radar there. Velocity mode is showing some good rotation on that as well. And this is actually looks like it's been moving more east, but now it looks like it's a little bit more maybe just south of east of the direction that it's going. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that. But Park Ridge, you're my next big concern for where that area of rotation is right now.
So right there near Des Plaines and Park Ridge, there's a report of a funnel crossing over 294 right now. So that's where that's lining up very well with the velocity. And so let's time that part of the tornado out, or the funnel cloud. It could be on the ground momentarily already or about to be. So be very careful here. If you live in Park Ridge, you need to be in your safe place. Niles, you'll be next within the next few minutes, and then Lincolnwood, Illinois, to the north of downtown. You're expecting this tornado by about 7:15, 7:18 p.m. Central Time. So that's likely the path this tornado will take, staying north of downtown Chicago, but then other areas of rotation here that we'll have to watch for the downtown proper near Proviso, and then working into the city center.
Sounds like we're getting some reports around O'Hare as well, that there may have been some warehouse damage in that area. That's the word in NWS chat right now.
What was that? Near O'Hare?
Near
Homes?
O'Hare, no, not homes, some warehouses potentially impacted.
Okay, so obviously wind damage is going to be a big threat. These storms are strong and are producing tornadoes. If you're at Navy Pier, you need to get inside. If you're at the ballpark, you need to get inside. Downtown streets are not going to be safe, and you're not going to get visuals. Remember, you're surrounded by huge buildings. You're not going to have any warning that this is coming from, except for the fact the warnings are going off. You're under a tornado warning, and these spin-ups are changing up very quickly. You know, earlier we were taking a look at Wrigley Field. Let's check back in and see what it looks like now. And there were a few people out. Looks like most people are getting the word that there is a tornado warning in place. There's a few people running around, walking around. But the bulk of people, I think, are sheltering in place right now, playing it safe. Keep an eye out. This is the second tornado warning within an hour for downtown Chicago. And so the warnings have kind of been going off continuously, kind of really interrupting a lot of people's plans this evening. But safety is always first.
Yeah, it's kind of deceiving right there in Wrigley Field right now. And that's what kind of concerns me when you have storms that are severe that roll through. You get a break, and then you get severe storms that roll through again on the backside of that. Sometimes that throws people off and think, oh, one and done. But this is not a one and done. You can see the severe storms that do have rotation still remain west of Chicago. Of course, they're all moving towards the lake shore, so we get through this and we're going to be all right, I think, here for the rest of the night. It becomes a problem over Lake Michigan, maybe lower Michigan or Indiana. We'll keep an eye on that threat. You're not under any type of watch in those areas right now.
All right, we do have some new pictures coming into the Weather Channel, getting reports of funnel clouds. This is one we saw just a few moments ago.
Yeah, this was the initial initial warning, but there's some different vantage points of that tornado that we were dealing with earlier. There's that funnel that was spotted. That was the one near Cicero and Oswego as it was approaching near Midway about an hour ago. And so those are some of the visuals that we were seeing with some of those storms as they work their way back into Chicago. So let's pull up the radar really quickly. JD's highlighting the two most concerning areas. Notice, guys, when you look at the radar, you see this little like circle in the radar. That's where you got rotation. So there's very likely at least a funnel, possible tornado there near Proviso. That's O'Hare. That would be the one near O'Hare. And then you've got the one near Park Ridge and pushing towards the north side of Chicago near Skokie and heading towards the lakeshore in that vicinity as well, just east of Des Plaines.
Yeah, that one looks pretty nasty, and it also looks like there might be a second area of rotation that might be developing south of there, south of Rosemont. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But everybody in that vicinity, really, if you're anywhere in the polygon, you should be getting to your tornado safe place. It doesn't really matter if you're near the rotation or not. It's the best practice right now, especially under an evolving situation like this. We could get some damaging winds in areas where we're not getting the rotation as well. So keep that in mind. Not really seeing any big hail signatures with these. So,
we're not even seeing a lot of thunder and lightning with these at all either. So they're pretty low developing. It's mainly a high rotation shear environment that these storms are in, which is prompting just all of these to be tornado warnings and not necessarily severe thunderstorm warnings.
Chris, do you see 19 right there, right in the middle of the radar where that heavy rain is? And you take 19 to the right, almost where that arrow is. That's where Wrigley Field is.
Okay, so so let's see where the arrow is, right there.
So, yeah, it's almost pointing at it, I think. Yeah, right in there.
Yep.
Yeah, so
it's headed that direction.
Yeah, so it's going to be just a little bit of time. We're not going to be stopping to take pictures for too long here out in front of Wrigley Field with that mess that is right over that number 19 right now is heading, yes, in that direction. That is heading toward Wrigley Field right now. So as we watch the camera on the left, conditions are going to deteriorate in a big way pretty soon. Pretty soon. And 19 is what you could take 19 all the way out to the south side of O'Hare, which you see right there, where 294 goes up to 90. Those lines there south of Des Plaines, that's where O'Hare is. So you can kind of think of, right in there. So 19 kind of takes you from the north side of 19, where O'Hare is, you take it east toward the water, and then eventually you'll be south of 19 where Wrigley Field is.
Things really going downhill in Evanston, too. I might mention that you guys are probably starting to get the really heavy rain. Looks like we've got that area of rotation off to your west. So Evanston, now is time that if you haven't already done it, you need to be getting to your tornado safe place, lowest level of your home, away from doors and windows. The lowest floor that you got. A lot of us have basements in the Midwest. If you don't have a basement, though, get to an interior room like a closet or a bathroom. If you're a teenager and your parents are out and you're not home, don't be calling mom. Just, get to the tornado safe place, right? You guys can do it. Just get to that interior room. A bathroom a lot of times is a good one. You don't want any windows if you can help it, right? And you want as many walls as you can between you and the outside of your home. And just wait until the warning's over. And hopefully we'll get through this all right, you guys.
Yeah, everyone in that entire red box, which is the tornado warning, not everybody's going to see a tornado, but the reason why the box is kind of large is because while we have the area rotation there's new areas that are firing up along that. So the threat is there for everybody. Not everybody will see the tornado, but you need to take that threat seriously because these things change very quickly. And that's something they don't want people to be caught off guard thinking, okay, the tornado's north. They just shaved off part of the warning. So O'Hare not technically under the warning anymore, but now the lakeshore and all of downtown Chicago remains as these areas of rotation are headed towards the city and the lakeshore. So from downtown north, you've got a pretty significant threat here with the possibility of tornadoes. And these are the same tornadoes that have produced confirmed tornadoes on the ground as they continue to push off towards the east.
Chris, we do have some new video coming into the Weather Channel I want to show you here on Storm Center as we continue to watch the tornado-warned storm in Chicago. This, if you look closely, you can see a little bit of lowering in the clouds, a couple of spots like an upside-down mountain there. On the horizon, the lowering of the clouds right in the center of the screen, somewhat obscured. It looks a little fuzzy, I should say, because of the rain that's coming down. So this in the greater Chicago area, not sure exactly where it is or what direction. Seeing it for the first time, not seeing any landmarks that jump out as being super obvious here from this vantage point. Do have some more new video that's coming into the Weather Channel. Again, there's an active warning right now. This is from earlier, and it sounds like you can hear the sirens.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think this, if I'm not mistaken, is just south of downtown. So my guess is this was that storm that was ongoing. It was the southernmost tornado-warned storm, is my guess.
Yeah.
Because I think this was kind of down south, like not too far away from Midway.
Yeah, that was where the first big tornado warning was, the one near Midway. And the second one area now that we're dealing with is near O'Hare, pushing east now of O'Hare and into downtown Chicago and parts of the Lakeshore.
Yeah, it looks like we don't have any tornadoes confirmed on the ground any longer. Okay, we are seeing rotation still in 2 different areas on radar. The good news is that both of them have broadened out a little bit. So hopefully that trend will continue, and we'll see that continue to broaden and weaken a little bit, but still watching those areas now near Maywood, near River Forest, near Forest Park, and then that second area, which was over towards the Park Ridge area, is now a little bit more south. I think we're looking at places over towards Norridge, maybe up towards Lincolnwood and Skokie. Skokie, you need to be in your tornado safe place. That's where we're seeing some of that broader rotation. And Evanston, it looks like it's just going to be shaven really close to you, maybe on the south side. Evanston, take your tornado precautions because this is too close of a shave to risk it. You want to get into your safe place. That should be arriving around 7:17. So we're just very close to the timing of that happening. And then Chicago, as we get into the downtown area, the edge of this should be coming in by the bottom of the hour. So you have, what, 10 minutes, a little over 10 minutes to get to your safe place until this thing moves on through and it passes finally.
So the rain's picking up a little bit more here at Wrigley Field. We were expecting it to, and it's starting to right now. It's obviously a bit more wet. We'll see as we look live right now. We'll see if the visibility goes down even more as the storms are getting closer and closer to this part of Chicago. So this is north of downtown, just about due east of the southern part of O'Hare. So if you're in the one of the runways in the southern part of O'Hare and you head due east toward the water, you'd find yourself through the nice neighborhoods here in Chicago and around Wrigleyville here and Wrigley Field. As we're seeing some of the rain coming in. Chris, doesn't look super heavy at the moment, but it's not too far away from where some of that rotation is, kind of right in between the 2 areas that are highlighted there. You see that 19 on there, and there's like where the sweep's going by, the 19 in the square. There's a line right in there. So if you take that out a little bit farther to the east and then south a little bit, between that road that goes northwest and southeast. Yeah, somewhere in there is where Wrigley is. So this is showing us the rotation on the radar on the right, the rain on the left. So not in the heaviest of rain here, but still this rain is associated with the storms that are currently tornado warned on here north of downtown Chicago. And Chicago is in the warning.
Yeah, I might mention the Cana and Lake counties are both now in the clear. Okay, your warnings have been allowed to expire or canceled a little bit early, so you guys are fine. If you live over towards Des Plaines, over towards Layton, everywhere west of there, you guys are out of the woods for now.
Yeah, so, you know, that hook near Skokie and moving near Evanston is about to get over the lakeshore. So it's only got a few more miles to go. Let's hope it holds off from developing, but these are still holding you're starting to get more of these hooks now as it approaches the lakeshore. So we really got to watch these areas of rotation. There's like 3 notable areas just based off just the radar returns. So it's very clear we've got a lot of rotation because what's happening is the rain's being rotating in with the storm. So that's why you're get these little kinks here, which is very indicative of rotation, let alone the risk for tornadoes. So we've got to watch these because even though they're close to the lakeshore, there's a lot of people between there and Lake Michigan that are in play, and this could tighten up very quickly with this type of setup and produce a tornado. Even if it only travels a mile, it's going to impact lots of people, especially as you get into some of the more heavily populated areas like Chicago. So Chicago, your threat really ramping up right now. Be in your safe place. I know we've been talking about it anywhere from 7:20 to 7:30. That was kind of key timing for some of the worst of these storms to get into the heart of Chicago, and that's exactly what we're looking at. Taking a live look out over downtown from the top of the Willis Tower. This is looking east now, so we're looking away from the storms. Storms are coming in from behind the camera, and nothing notable, at least seen from here, but you can see the rain starting to come in from the left side, so the north side. This is likely to get obscured here very quickly as some very intense rain is about to move in within the next 5 to 10 minutes. So you can see that rain now impacting
he's running.
us.
He's making a run for it.
That's some heavy rain there, but look at the brightening. You can see the sky really lighting up off towards the west before sunset here. So that's the back edge of that storm, and that threat after that pretty much done. No more severe weather once this line pushes through. For Chicago, we'll still have to keep a close watch on northern Indiana and Michigan over the next few hours, but really Chicago really bearing the brunt of some of the worst threats for tornadoes today, and we've seen that really lived out over the past 2 hours or so with all these warnings that have just recently popped up.
It's good to see the volume of people is low. Normally you'll see this area packed, even when there's not a game, right?
Yeah.
So it's good to see that. You know, we're, 20 after 7 here in the Midwest, and it's a time of the night where hopefully most people are home now, right? They've made their way from work, and they've made their way home, and it's summer, unless you're on vacation, the kids are home probably, right?
We have that Midway camera, and we can zoom out that radar a little bit that it has a tornado warned storm on it. See, there's 2 obvious rain shafts right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. See on the bottom right there. Awesome, JD. See on the bottom, there's a couple of spots that have a little bit darker red. So right there, the sun's getting a low enough angle that we're really starting to see these rain shafts really kind of stand out. And what we're looking at, this is you're looking at the runway Midway, and think of Midway as like an X with the runways, and the runway that we're looking off going from right to left, close to us, far away, right to left, that's basically pointed up to the northwest. So this camera is almost just about due north. So you're looking at the 2 cells, the 2 heavy rain parts of the tornado warned storm, the southern part of the tornado warned storm. And you can really see that. So we're looking up to the north, and you can really see the obvious rain shafts there. Yeah,
we can pull up the radar and show you that. So Chris, what I think you're seeing is this and this.
Yeah.
Those 2 spots. Those little notches on the south end of the tornado warning.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking that is. And then maybe a little bit, there might be another third one off to the left.
That's this coming in right there.
Yes, yeah, perhaps that.
So yeah, I mean, this southern part of this storm looks to be the most intense right now, and may even be showing signs of strengthening as it now closes in on Chicago. Looks like it's going to kind of deviate from downtown just slightly from some of the heaviest of rain, kind of missing the downtown loop, the Chicago River, Navy Pier, some of the popular areas that you may be familiar with Chicago. But the area of rotation is not going to be in the heaviest rain. It's going to be right there. So we got to watch that as that kind of comes in near Wrigley Field and also towards Navy Pier and Magnificent Mile. So we're zooming in hyper local right there, kind of giving you an idea of, okay, so that we were just resetting the radar right there. Still tornado warning if you're just joining us here for Chicago proper, including much of Cook County, although a lot of this is now out of the threat zone back over towards O'Hare, and then Evanston now. Those storms have already come through. They're pushing offshore, so we've really got to watch North Chicago and then down through downtown and then pushing south of the city for that biggest threat. This is now the only tornado warning that we are following. No other warnings have been issued. So things are showing signs of improvement. And
so I just might want to mention that if you're not in the tornado warning,
these cells over
but if you're just south
of the
tornado warning, you may want to consider seeking shelter like a tornado warning. I wouldn't be surprised if we get an extension farther south. I'm starting to see some rotation developing south of Cicero over towards Stickney into the Forest View area. Maybe not tight enough to quite pull the trigger on a tornado warning on it, but it definitely looks like there is some rotation that is just south of where we have the warning right now. And that's kind of building back. And JD, if you expand the view a little bit broader, notice the storms that were up towards Evanston. They're offshore now.
Yeah, they're offshore.
So before, this whole line was pretty much parallel, moving due east. And now we've kind of seen this line evolve. We see it kind of lingering back on the tail end. Sometimes we'll call these little tail end Charlies, right? If you kind of get a little line developing. And a lot of times you can get rotation on the tail ends of some of these also. So I would not sleep on those storms south of Downers Grove or just south of where we have that warning in that area. Those could be intensifying and beginning to rotate with time. So that would be the next area I think we need to be potentially concerned about.
So I'd like to maybe take a couple cameras here from downtown Chicago, because they've shrunk the warning again. So some of the worst of these storms in the tornado warned zone that we were tracking are now coming in close to the downtown city center. So let's see if we can see anything visually. Maybe take Rim 3, because that's now looking towards that storm. And this is looking between the two. So you got the area of rotation there on the north. So that's on the north end. And then you got the heavy rain shield coming in from the west. So in between, you got this little gap where the sun's kind of peeking through and kind of illuminating the horizon. So heavy rain starting to kind of approach us here. Dalton, if you can't, or I keep calling you Dalton, forgive me.
JD's with us tonight.
You have a D.
Dalton's on vacation.
yes.
Good for you, Dalton.
JD, if you can switch to velocity, I just want to see if anything's kind of ringing up. So not anything super notable from the velocity. We've had a hard time seeing a lot of these cells though. On some of the radars because of the interference with some of the several airports nearby and a lot of different radars in close proximity. But there is some rotation. Winds moving away from and towards the radar. I don't think we have a tornado on the ground right now, although we are under a tornado warning, because at any minute this could tighten up really quickly. And these things, can evolve in just under a minute. I mean, it happens quickly. So that's why they want everyone to be prepared, especially when you're talking about well over nearly 1 million people right there in that small little tornado warning in downtown Chicago.
Yeah, that's really the best area of rotation that we got going on right now, right there on the northwest side. And that, interesting how this has evolved so much and where areas of rotation have actually kind of changed and hopped and weakened and broadened out. So that is really the strongest area of rotation, I think, across the entire area right now.
Yeah, and that camera, Chris, is looking at that storm.
It is looking in that direction. So we're seeing, the figurative light at the end of the tunnel. We're seeing the sun on the other side of the storms right now, and that is a sign that there is a back edge to this. The winds are turning at the surface with the storm, so we're not getting that obvious wind shear anymore. So conditions are kind of lining up to put an end to this. At least here in this part of Illinois, these storms are going offshore, and they will reemerge in Michigan.
We should get a nice looking sunset too.
Well, we can go high up in that Willis Tower camera and see what we're looking at as well. Now the storms are nearing downtown. Take a look at Rim 7 if we can, and we can pull it up full. Heavy rain coming through. You can see the light kind of illuminating the left side of your screen, and that's the area where any rotation would be. So it's a kind of obscured, interesting viewpoint here, but we're not seeing any tornadoes. We're not seeing anything tornadic visually. And so
it's tough to see it from here, I think, regardless.
Yeah. And so things should improve here pretty quickly once this gets offshore. I mean, we're like less than 2 miles away. All right, so it's been a long evening here in the Chicago metro area. Our coverage will continue here on the Weather Channel with meteorologist Todd Bork and Carl Parker standing by in the lab monitoring the serious threat for tornadoes, not just in the Chicago metro area, but also monitoring areas in northern Indiana, guys, and even western Michigan.
Yeah, there is an ongoing tornado watch, as you mentioned, in northern Indiana, and conditions certainly favorable for tornadoes in those areas. Once again, to recap here in the Chicago metro area, there is an ongoing tornado warning in effect. That for Cook County going until 7:45. So we're watching a couple of areas of rotation now in the Chicago metro area. One of those is now right along the lakeshore. There's a little bit of a spin that's showing up right in there, and then you could make the case that we've got another area right in there. Now I want to show you a camera on REM 3 looking at downtown Chicago, and so you can see right in here, and maybe we could pull that out full. This is the back edge of these storms, and the back edge is where these spins have been located. Look at that. There's a shot from the Willis Tower in downtown Chicago at an elevation of 1,353 feet. And so you're looking at that back edge right there. This might be a spectacular view in short order as those storms begin to work out over the lake, and we'll take a look at that. Also, another downtown camera. We're starting to see some clearing there on the north side. So this line of storms is oriented from southwest to northeast, and the back edge now coming through downtown Chicago. Once that clearing comes through, you are in the clear. You're going to be in good shape after that point. And so that cell that we were watching moments ago, right in there, now has just moved offshore, and things are going to be improving there. Let's go back to that Willis camera tower shot, and you can see that back edge of these storms here. Really amazing shot here from the Willis Tower. And, you know, you can even see just a little bit of uplift. If you look on the left side of the screen there, you can see a little bit of vertical motion going up into that cloud. You can see that very well-defined cloud bottom there as it's moving offshore. Big rain shaft that is also starting to push offshore. So, you know, these are very strong storms that continue to move through the Chicago metro area. And, you know, there is still rotation showing up on this one that's on the south side right in there. In fact, I'm going to go back to the velocity data, and you see there's more rotation in that area right there. That area is very interesting. And let's go back to that Willis Tower camera, and let's pull that out full, if we could, please, because, you know, there is a really interesting feature that's showing up. If you look on the far left there, you see that looks like a little bit of an appendage showing up right there. And, you know, that's not surprising because that's the area where we're seeing the strongest rotation ongoing right now. So, you know, it looks like we've got at least a little bit of a funnel cloud showing up there just out over the lake from that storm. Remarkable storm here, Todd, as it's coming through Chicago right now.
And if we just take a look at that picture, look at how amazing this shot is too. You have that lowering that you're talking about right almost in the middle there. You can see a rainbow that's coming out there just to the left of the rain shaft you're talking about. But as everything we're looking, that is the one cell that has all the lightning in it as well. All that lightning is actually offshore at this time. The big question is whether or not that circulation that's near South Lawndale, if that's the one that you're talking about, whether or not that holds through as well. I want to show you a little bigger perspective here, and you can, if we can just keep that up. We have that ongoing tornado watch that does continue. Storm Prediction Center may issue a downstream watch at some point if we're looking into your Indiana and even southwest Michigan. Actually, if we go over to, yeah, right there's Carl's Max there, that is going to be something we're going to have to watch because they may end up having to issue, just for the simple fact that we've had a whole mess of circulation. We already had confirmed tornado in northern Illinois, and that might be something as well. One update here, they did just, and you just saw it up there as well, the National Weather Service has canceled that tornado warning right now for Cook County, Illinois. They don't quite see the circulation, but it's interesting, Carl, as far as lightning strikes, there aren't any that are over Illinois anymore. All the activity is now over Lake Michigan.
Yeah, and guys, I don't know if we can put that Willis Tower camera shot in my telestrator, but, you know, we are definitely seeing a rotating storm now moving offshore. And so, you know, if you look on the left side there, you see there's a taller skyscraper that is about, you know, a third of the way from the right. And if you look just above that, I think that's the old Standard Oil building. If you look just above that, you can see that lowering that is rotating broadly. And from time to time, I've spotted some little funnel clouds within that as well. And so, you know, just a remarkable view here of these rotating storms as they are working offshore. Now, the tornado warning has been allowed to expire here in Chicago. So things do appear to be improving. But again, I think we're going to have some really amazing views as these storms continue to work offshore. You see the rain shaft that is just ahead of us there and pulling away. And then you see off to the left, that's where the strongest rotation is showing up in the velocity data. You know, oftentimes when you get to a body of water, you get even a little more low-level wind shear. And so, you know, it's not surprising. So, you know, what we're looking at there is this area right in there. We're looking at that area of rotation. There is spin there. You can see where it's kind of brighter yellow and there's darker color as well. That is where there's rotation, and that is what you are seeing on the left, say third of the screen in the upper left corner. That brighter area is the bottom of that storm that is now rotating. Now farther south, down here south of downtown, we're seeing a very broad, what we would call a shear line, and that's an area where you've got winds that are moving out of this direction and then moving out of this direction. And so that, you know, that's always an area of concern. So, you know, points south of Chicago and towards the lakeshore, I would just be on your toes in case anything changes very quickly. But we're not seeing a more concentrated area of rotation like we're seeing right there. And again, that is on the left-hand side of that tower cam view where you're seeing that lowering there. We're seeing some little appendages now and again. And, you know, I've definitely seen at least a couple of funnel clouds in that shot, Todd, as that's been pulling away and now illuminated by the setting sun.
I was just going to say that it is almost as if the sun is trying to highlight where exactly you want to look.
Yeah.
One quick note coming out of the National Weather Service, Chicago. Obviously, they are warning free at the moment, but still cannot completely rule out another spin up somewhere. So nothing seems imminent at the moment, like you've been talking about. But even as of right now, it does not look like they are going to be issuing any new warnings at the moment. But until that line completely pushes through downtown Chicago and extreme northern Illinois, we're not completely rain-free as of yet. If we can just jump over real quickly to Max 46, I just want to go over some of the things that we have seen as of lately. So that is that cell that Carl was showing. And here are some of the storm reports we've seen so far. 20 large trees, large trees 20 inches in diameter down, and damage reported to homes west of Elgin and northeast of Campton Hills. That is location, time estimated, and also for LaGrange. This was the cell that they were talking about in Storm Center earlier. That's the one that had the debris ball, and we had a really clear, defined inflow notch, and that thing really was looking on very dangerous on our radar. Obviously, this is the one that was on, we believe was on the ground. Car windows reported blown out and damage to signs. Also, in Huntley, trees were down, damage reported in around the homes near Algonquin and Reed Roads, and also in Huntley, one roof blown off in Huntley as well. So as we look ahead, we still have that active tornado watch until 10 o'clock local time. Would not be surprised we see the edge of this here in the Chicago area being sliced off. But the one thing I want to note is that the Storm Prediction Center is also thinking about possibly issuing a downstream watch. It may be needed, so this is, at least for right now, what we call the mesoscale discussion. So they're just looking possibly that they may be issuing a watch maybe here in northern Indiana and far southwest Michigan, Carl, something that they'll keep an eye on. Obviously, with that cell that's going over Lake Michigan, if that thing's not going to be going away anytime soon, that might be a reason why they may have a tornado watch upstream.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that modeled tornado potential here in just a moment. If we could, let's go back to the Willis Tower camera because, you know, again, we're looking at one of the storms that plagued Chicago for, you know, a couple of hours here coming across the metro area, now being illuminated by the sun. And so this is on the, you know, left upper side of your screen there. And you see that lowering that is offshore. That's a rotating storm right now. That area of lowering is what we call a wall cloud. And, you know, this thing would very well likely have a tornado warning if it was in fact over land, but it's out over the open water right now. But well-defined circulation still showing up in that storm as it now pulls away from Chicago. Just amazing views of these cells as they're moving away. So we'll drop on in and take a look at what's happening right now. Still some lingering storms on the south side of Chicago. We look at the velocity data. And so, you know, what we were looking at just there on the camera on the upper left, is right there. That's the area of rotation. And in the most recent scan, it's not as well defined. You've got an area that's what we call a shear line right in there, where you've got winds coming out of different directions. So there's still some chance that we could see something developing down on the south side of Chicago along the lakeshore towards Calumet, but there is no warning right now. Larger picture, though, we've got these rotating storms. They're going to rapidly move across the lake here and come into southwest lower Michigan and also into Indiana. And what we've seen today is a lot of low-level wind shear. Winds coming out of the south at the surface, even a little more wind shear, as I mentioned, along the lake, because you get a little turning of the winds right along the lakeshore, and then your winds at 5,000 feet are coming out of the southwest. And so that turning of the winds in the lowest levels of the atmosphere is what has given us this tornado threat today. Now, here is the current modeled tornado potential, and you see that that is going to be highest right now in northwest Indiana, Valparaiso, and over towards South Bend, and also southwestern lower Michigan and towards Benton Harbor. And then here you see how that's going to evolve as we go through the night tonight. That's going to be moving farther into northern Michigan, northern Indiana, and southern parts of Michigan. Want to show you some video of the funnel cloud that we saw earlier tonight. And, you can very clearly see that sort of a V shape off in the distance there. We did have another photo of this tornado, and you could really clearly see that there was a suction spot there as well. A little bit of debris showing up right here's the photo, and so it's subtle, but yeah, right there you can absolutely see that there is some debris there. So we had at least one tornado in Chicago. We'll have more coverage on this as necessary right here on the Weather Channel.